Hi, I'm going to make a little drawing. I wanted to use this image for a drawing, and I'm going to use this paper, White Ecological Artist paper by Fabriano, and this 5.6 millimeter mechanical pencil, Koh-i-Noor, versatile. And in this pencil I will have this Nero medium lead lead. So that's the source photograph and the materials. And how shall I put my paper? So I will use this area, and let's just start with it. First I draw the eyes, then her nose, and I just add some very sketchy lines. And now that I have defined it more or less, I can zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. And let's just start. I'm using a little paper to put under my hand. Otherwise I will leave marks here. And these are not really very accurate. Sometimes you can decide to have them very accurate from the beginning, and sometimes I feel, well, along the way I will make them better. And let the drawing proceed as it goes, or create itself along the way. So and I just draw the darker areas where I can, because the photo as a whole is quite light actually. I think I drew the nose a bit too low, so I just draw it higher. Just straight through the earlier attempt. And sometimes just leaving earlier lines which are not correct, just leave them on the paper, can make it more interesting. Now I tried to put the mouth a little higher than I did, and I wonder if... oh no, wait. I'm a bit confused by this. So sometimes I think I make a lot of... well, I don't know if I make a lot of mistakes now, but sometimes having certain areas that you have to redo and have the previous attempts as a sort of ghosting, as a sort of ghost of the actual end form, can make the drawing more interesting, as if it has more character. So it's not always a bad sign to make mistakes. It's also it's part of the the reason that a handmade object is interesting, and drawings too. I mean, when you have a Persian carpet, I believe that it's part of what the Persian carpet is, that there are certain mistakes because it's done by hand, and that's beautiful. It gives it more character and authenticity, and I think that certain things that you started drawing with and that you have to correct. I mean, within certain limits, but it can be beneficial to the appearance of the drawing, to the character. And sometimes it's also good to see something of the process, something of the struggle you had making that drawing. It's good sometimes to have that visible in the end result, as I said, for the character of it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again. Her eye sockets. And I just indicate the rough direction of her hair, so I'm not exactly drawing every hair, but just the structure of hair, the large form of it, and here I can add some shadow. Here's some very ugly hatchings. I think that I'd try to cover these. It's not really the way I should hatch, I think, but sometimes I try out something. And this wasn't really great to have this here. I didn't really like that. Here's this dark shadow, and I had to make some sort of consideration, because am I drawing only this area, or do I also draw the hairs and the shadows around it? And I decided to make it a bit more complete, to not really make it a very minimalistic drawing, but to draw the surrounding areas as well. So that wasn't really planned or so. I wasn't really sure what kind of drawing it would be as I started with this one. Because it could have been a nice drawing also by just drawing the mouth and the nose. Then you have some sort of minimalistic approach, which I like. But it's also nice to work things out further to get it more complete. And now I want to add to this area more. Make it larger. And I think I had horizontal lines here, so then it's easier to make some sort of difference between the lines of her face and her hair. And then when I add horizontal lines in the background in this area, I feel that it's clear that it's not part of her face or so. And I'm looking at the tonal values now of her face, because this area is light, tip of her nose and the bridge here is light. This is all slightly darker than these few areas, so adding some subtle hatchings to get a sort of difference between the different planes, areas of her face. And this should be quite a bit darker. And when you add hatchings to a chin of a girl, you have to watch out not to make it appear like a beard. That's something you need to be careful about. This area is quite large and dark, and an area like this gives the drawing a certain weight, so to speak. So it anchors the drawing in a way to the paper. And as I make this darker, relatively these appear lighter. So when you start a drawing and you start drawing this, for example, it looks dark on a light surface, but when you make certain areas even darker, these are relatively light again. So that gives you the opportunity to make accentuations, but also to correct even certain areas that might have been not so good, inaccurate a bit or so. You can add certain accentuations which are more accurate because the rest of the drawing is more finished and you have more points of coordination to which this is a relative. So you can make a drawing more accurate along the way as well in such a way. That's how you can sometimes start a drawing in a very loose manner and proceed with it and end up with relatively accurate drawing. While at first it didn't look like that. But that's just an approach. I'm not saying that this works for everybody, but it's a way of approaching something like this. Not everything is on the picture here, but I guess the hair just extends here like this. and the drawing is coming along nicely. So so I'm thinking about now, how far shall I go in finishing this drawing. I mean, I like the atmosphere of a loose sketch as well. So when you keep on drawing and drawing, and I mean, you can go on for hours, but it would lose something. While I think that is really nice, spontaneous drawing, as it is now actually. So I think the expression is right. And I'm looking at the last things now. But I think I leave it as it is now. I think it is finished. Thank you for watching. Thank you.